for iron. And amyloid is a prion protein of fibrinogen. Interesting. Okay, here's we got to talk about prion proteins for just a minute. The prion proteins basically means the protein
Unmasking Disease, Mental Myths, hosted by Thompson.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mental Myths. I'm your host, Thompson, and before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
For 15 years, and it doesn't seem to be reaching the cognitive presence of those that should be aware. And I don't know why, but the calcium and vitamin D message for osteoporosis treatment is just sort of pitiful and stupid. I'm serious, stupid. I mean, seriously, they know the bones are not made of calcium and vitamin D, and that's not the problem. Seriously? I mean, do they not read? Can they not understand hydroxyapatite crystals have at least 13 or 14 different minerals in there? And so osteoporosis is a lack of minerals. What is interesting is they don't understand it's a completely nutritional disease. And I've actually observed osteoporosis in every decade of life. My youngest patient was 7. Actually had a 6-year-old patient that I'm pretty sure had it, but I couldn't get the radiologists because they're ignorant, to perform a DEXA scan on her. And the problem with the DEXA scan is that they compare everyone to their age and they don't consider the fact of dilution. And that seems to be something that's of significance that I discovered last year, mostly because it happened to me and I had never really observed it before. And what happened, I started drinking 4 to 6 molecular hydrogen water bottles every day. Molecular hydrogen is really good for our mitochondria, right? So I was drinking that and thinking I'm doing myself a good thing. And after 14 months of doing that, I did another hair tissue analysis and all my mineral levels dropped 30 to 50%. Quite literally, it was the most acute decline in mineral levels I'd ever seen in any patient ever. And I looked at the results and it took me a few days to figure it out that it was dilution. I'd just been drinking more water. And I've been saying for 25 years, the 2 most important things we put in our body every day are water and minerals. I'm like saying to myself, how come you weren't taking minerals when you were drinking your water? And I'm like, dang, Robert, you diluted yourself. And that ended up being the foundation of my November 4, 2023 Nobel lecture on the subject of minerals, where I helped the world understand for the first time that we're all diluted. I had so much fun saying that. I still do. We're all... And so it's a real critical problem. We just don't have enough minerals in our food. And most of our food is destroyed. And I'll get to the reasons why shortly. That's number 5. But the key is we must understand osteoporosis as a nutritional disease of mineral deficiency. And the only way we can reverse it is to stop dilution. In other words, every time you drink something, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to take another dose of trace minerals. And what I tell my patients, put them by your workstation, put them by your computer, put them by your television, put them in your car, put them in your bathroom, put them in your kitchen. Make it impossible for you to sit down and drink something without conveniently taking trace minerals, because our bodies don't just thirst for water, they thirst for minerals. And that can actually translate into other pathogenic physiologies, such as craving. And for instance, the best example is pregnancy, where women, eat have eating dysfunctions, like eating clay and things like that, because they're craving minerals. And the deficiency is actually even more profound in pregnancy, because every woman loses about 4 pounds of minerals to her baby during pregnancy, and that's not currently being replaced. It hasn't been ever replaced except for in my patients, and the results are dismal at best, because the children come out of a mother with basically the same fingerprint of minerals that their mother has, with one exception. And this is difficult to explain, but children are perfect saprophytes. We have like parasites and saprophytes and whatever phytes. Anyway, the difference between a parasite and a saprophyte is the parasite lives with the co-host and doesn't harm the host. A saprophyte will take from the host what it needs, even if the host is deficient. And babies, thank God, are probably saprophytes. That's why they can survive severe nutritional problems like in wars and famines and things like that. But the bottom line is mineral deficiency is a plague that's it's now pretty much involving the whole planet Earth, and it's not being recognized. And it's the foundation of our mineral deficiencies. And we're all making it worse by diluting. So I keep encouraging my patients to stop it. And one caveat, if you're starting on taking trace minerals and you find that you can't take very much because it gives you loose stools, the problem is not the minerals. The problem is your gastrointestinal tract. You're lacking absorption or surface area or bioflora and all the other things that you need in the gastrointestinal tract to work. And what really scared the pants out of me recently was, off of actually sit there, was like, just like 3 days ago, an article published that showed that a lot of the supplements that we recommend don't work because of lack of the bacteria needed in the gastrointestinal tract to break them down into the substances that are the benefit. And I'm like, dang, that's a real shocker, because you know how many people pay a lot of money for supplements, basically, and if they don't have gastrointestinal bacteria to break them down properly, the fact that they won't work, and if they don't have absorption capability, that's why I tell them where they can't get minerals, and you got a GI problem. It's not just a mineral problem, it's absorption of everything, not just minerals. So remember, we all have to measure our minerals properly, and the only way we can measure our minerals is hair tissue mineral analysis. That's it. That's the only way, doctor. Only way. 94% of all the minerals in the human are inside the cell. Blood tests are 6%. Which would you rather measure? 94% or 6%? I mean, seriously. I say, those are the stupid doctor tests. Why would you measure 6% when you can measure 94? You're just stupid? I'm just asking the question. My sweetheart says, Robert, don't use the word stupid. Okay. I just don't know. I've been saying the same thing for a long time about potassium, but in May of 2021, I read Dr. Pollack's book, Cells, Gels, and the Engines of Life. I'm kind of a student of life and learning, and I don't know exactly what prompted me to read it, but I had read his book on the fourth phase of water, and it was just, oh my gosh, I just was so enthralled with learning and the way he taught, that when I would discover a really good teacher, I want to learn all I can from them, right? And so I read his second book, and I thought to myself, you haven't read a book on physiology since you graduated from medical school. What was that, 1977? Well, I thought to myself, maybe you should probably read one. And I would encourage everyone to do that. But when I looked at the copyright, it was 20 years old. Oh, I know. And that's how far behind my information is. And there are no physicians that know what I'm teaching currently, because they're all doing improper measurements all the time. 94% of the time they're doing improper measurements because they're not measuring hair tissue mineral analysis. So they're actually harming patients, and let me explain why. The second thing I teach, which is pivotal, and this is actually from Dr. Pollack's book, so if someone wants to look it up, please do. It's a reference. And when doctors want to try to disagree with me and tell me it's my opinion, I say, no, it's not. It's basic science. Look it up, doctor. Cells, Gels, and Engines of Life, page 2001, Gerald Pollack, page 119 to 122. Look it up and read it. It's really simple. He simply shows the how and why of the importance of potassium. Potassium is the most important mineral of all minerals to human physiology. It's also the highest in concentration by molality within our cells. And when we test by air tissue analysis, the average patient that I test has 15% of what they're supposed to have. That's 85% depletion of their intracellular potassium. And let me explain why that is a major crisis and why I alerted the world in my lecture on November 4th, 2023, of the significance of this revelation in the sense that dipoles, what does potassium do? It creates dipoles. And dipoles is a simple word. It means two poles, two poles. What has two poles? A battery. How cool is that? Well, what does that mean? Well, potassium, it turns out, is attached by ATP, which is a energy molecule, triple phosphate negative energy molecule, which is produced in our our furnaces in our cells, the mitochondria, energy generating cells of structures. And when they generate this ATP, it attaches potassium to our protein molecules at every other carbon, which is 7 angstroms apart. So every 14 angstroms on our protein molecules, there's another potassium. When we have potassium and when we have ATP, two things we need. And I'm finding deficiencies in both. And I still find the correction or replacement of potassium troubling. And I think it has to do with the quality or the choice of the pharmaceuticals that we're using to help patients. I do everything. I like everything diet, so don't get me wrong. But when I see really, really severe deficiencies in potassium, I load them up. But the potassium I was taking was an extended release, and I probably was popping in my mouth, and I dropped one in my lap. Didn't realize it. I got out of the car, fell on the ground, didn't realize it. Got up the next day, came out, saw it sitting on the side of a mud puddle, and it was still hard. I know. It didn't dissolve. So we tried it. We put it in water for 3 days. We put it in acetic acid for 3 days. It didn't dissolve. It stayed hard. So I'm concerned about the pharmaceutical replacement of potassium. Nevertheless, I'll learn more about that. The key is, it's the most important of all minerals because it attaches water to our protein molecules, about 601 atoms. I don't know who counted them, but that's about 2,200 angstroms. And it's quite remarkable that distance creates a dipole, which is a battery. When we have about 215 batteries per protein molecule, we have average 430 peptides. We have 42 million protein molecules per cell, and we have about 70 trillion cells, which means our bodies are generating about 63,215 gazillion battery charges per split second. Some of the things that amaze me are the energy of the body is so remarkable. We generate 114 watts of energy per hour in our bodies, and we need potassium to do that because we need the battery charge. I tell patients, if you got 15% of your potassium, you got 15% of your cells are you're 85% dehydrated, and your battery charge is only 15% of normal. Do you think that's important? Holy cow! Yes. Why? The key is I always ask the why. Teachers teach why, how, when, where, what, and all that kind of stuff. And so the why is really the key because it turns out that this direct current energy is responsible for all nuclear function of the cell, all DNA compaction, histones, all DNA replication, nucleosomes, which combine 4 histones and in different orders, actually, that are just beginning to be discerned as far as what they do. Each of them significance does which one unravels, which one ravels, which one does RNA, which one does whatever. Anyway, we're just beginning to learn that. The first article on that was published in September of 23. Nevertheless, it's really remarkable the significance of this direct current energy, under 14 watts per hour for life. But why do we have so many people that are suffering from energy because of it's essentially lack of potassium, right? And so the world has missed it. I pointed this out in my lecture. I called it the Nobel Lecture, November 4th, 2023. That will be available for review when my podcast starts, whenever that happens, sometime soon. Anyway. And the transcript and that has been asked to be reviewed by a couple professors in Sweden, but no one's answered me yet. Nevertheless, in Norway, the significance of the principle, the Thompson-Dobriner principle, leads to the substitution of minerals, and I teach that according to what the biochemistry. And this is not original application of the science that was discovered in 1829. The first time anyone did tissue mineral analysis and applied the biology of mineral relationships to pathophysiology and